If you consistently find yourself hooking the golf ball, that shot can be extremely frustrating and of course detrimental to your score. This video is going to talk about why you hook the ball. Using the HackMotion wrist sensor, I'll explain how the wrists make up the closed club face that's really at the root cause of this issue, and show you exactly how you can practice to start to reduce your propensity to hooking and start hitting higher shots which fly straighter than ever before. A hook can be described as a shot that curves excessively to the left as a right-handed golfer. And the main component in that shot is a club face that is too closed. So a club face that's twisted and turned too far to the left, which presents a club face at impact, which has the club face pointing to the left. I'll just add this magnetic rod onto the club face here to help you see what that would look like. It's really a closed club face that is at the root cause of your hooking problem. We'll talk a little bit about where that can creep in shortly. But first of all, I want you to understand that when you're delivering this golf club to the ball, rather than the club being in a more neutral condition, which would have the rod pointing much more down the target line, during the swing, you're turning and twisting the grip and ultimately turning and twisting the shaft and the club head, which means you present a club face back to the ball that is now closed, and from the down the line view here, you'll notice how that rod is pointing excessively to the left. That will contribute hugely to those hook shots, and then it will mean that you'll start to try to compensate for that closed club face by swinging the club in a different direction to that of which the club is pointing. This causes multiple compensations in your swing, multiple variables really that are very difficult to time. So we need to look at the club face here and understand why it might be getting closed during the swing, particularly if you're not setting up with it in a closed condition. The first place to look would be the grip. Oftentimes, golfers who hook the golf ball tend to struggle with a grip that's turned too much to the right. That's both the lead arm and lead hand turned to the right, and then the trail arm, trail hand also turned to the right. That would see the lead hand turned on top, and oftentimes the trail hand much more underneath the grip as we set up. This type of attachment is often referred to as a strong grip. A strong grip really relates to the strengthening of the club face that ensues if you go down the road of using this grip. With the arms turned to the right, both arms turned to the right, that's the pronation of the lead arm and the supination of the trail arm. That rotation that you build in at setup makes it very, very easy for you to twist the club face closed. Equally, that turn grip makes it very difficult for you to twist the club face open. You have the most range of motion here in turning the club face down. So that strong grip can often be a reason why golfers hook the ball. If you notice that you fall into that category, I'd certainly encourage you to start looking there. Identify your grip to begin with, find out if your grip's really the issue, and then look to have both of those arms, rather than turn to the right, look to have them in a more neutral condition, where looking down at this lead hand, you'd likely see 2 to 3 knuckles on the left hand as a maximum. And then with the right hand, as you cover the left thumb, your right hand sits much more over and on top of the grip than it would do in the strong version. Once you've got the grip sorted, you're going to find that the propensity to twisting the face closed is reduced, but it doesn't stop you from being able to do so. So you need to recognize the wrist motions that can take place throughout the golf swing that would cause the club face to close or open excessively. When we start out, we have the lead wrist here in a very small amount of extension. Okay, we've got a little bit of extension here in this lead wrist as I set up to the golf ball. And as I swing back, I could keep that wrist condition the same, or I could twist the wrist, and therefore the club face, down and into a more closed position. This would be very consistent with people who hook the golf ball. They add too much lead wrist flexion during the backswing and all the way to the top, meaning now this club face is very, very closed, and if I don't do something about it in the downswing, I'm going to produce a club face that was like that original shot, hitting the ball a long way to the left. I'll go ahead and demonstrate one more of those. So even with a neutral grip, as I swing back, if I flex my lead wrist too much in the takeaway, it's going to close the face, move the club head inwards and around me too much, and make me prone to closing the face and hooking the ball. So while my club face was certainly closed there, I managed to mitigate it to some extent by swinging more to the right. And you'll find that that's very much in your pattern of your swing. If you're somebody who hooks the ball, you're also somebody who swings more to the right. And that swing direction to the right is your attempt to mitigate the closed face. And it can, on some occasions, a little bit like that one, it can work. It can work occasionally. The problem is timing up something that's so extreme, timing up all those multiple variables on the golf course can become at times just too difficult to do. It also becomes much more difficult to manage the longer the club gets. So as the loft reduces, the club gets longer and the face is more closed, you become much more susceptible to hooking the golf ball. And you also suffer from hitting the ball much lower. You'll notice that first shot I hit flew very low. When you close the club face, you also take the loft off of the club face. And so it makes you more likely to hit the ball not only to the left, but not be able to hit the ball high enough as well. My sense of where this club face is in space is enough to start helping me to mitigate the hook via the swinging to the right, but I'm already beginning to get some of the data up on the HackMotion wrist sensor app here, showing me that I'm too flexed with this wrist at times throughout the swing. And I'm sure once I get through more of these shots, we'll see a similar pattern. So it's the flexion that's causing the problem, closing the face, and then not being able to manage it with the path, causing big problems, huge hook to the left. On that occasion, I really exaggerated the problem on that time. And again, you'll see there at the top of the swing, I had far too much flexion in this lead wrist. The flexion causes the club face to close, and the closed club face causes me to hook the ball. So that's the identification of the problem. We need to reduce that flexion in the lead wrist. Let's talk about ways in which you can do that, along with a drill that I would encourage you to work with if you wanted to reduce your hooking. Quick question for you. Did you know that 80% of your golf ball's direction comes from the club face angle at impact? And it's your wrists that control that angle. If you want to hit straighter shots and add more distance to your game, then check out the link in the description below. So having completed my shots there with the HackMotion app, I've reached the point where the app is going to give me some guidance as to what to practice. And it's recognized from those shots that I hit, both the hooks to the left and also those shots that I was pushing to the right. It's recognized that I had too much flexion in my lead wrist, particularly in the takeaway. You'll see that on the screen there. So you'll notice in that bad picture there on the left-hand side of the poor takeaway, you'll notice how the golfer's flexed wrist moves the club head more around them. And at the same time, remember what that's going to do if we put the rod back onto the club face here, you're going to see how the loft of the club points too much down to the ground. This club could be twisted and turned in a whole manner of different ways, but just know that turned down towards the ground like that in the backswing is too much flexion, which is too closed of a club face. The training station I've set up here is something I would highly encourage you to look at setting up if you struggle with any kind of swing path issue. I mentioned earlier that the closed club face that you have as a hooker of the golf ball will encourage you and incentivize you to start swinging more to the right as a right-handed golfer to try and stop the problem. It mitigates some of that closed face. Putting in a training station here that blocks you from swinging too much from in to out will begin to train much better swing direction. And then with that, you'll need to get your club face into the right position to really avoid the hook. What we're really doing here essentially is removing the compensation that you've been making of swinging too much to the right to try and fix the closed club face. So by removing your ability to swing to the right, you now have to swing straighter, And as you swing straighter into the ball, you really have to make sure that that club face is not too closed. It needs to be more neutral. That would look like this. I'll leave the rod on the club face just as I demonstrate this. So in the takeaway, we're going to go above this stick here, this training station that's set up on the same angle as the club that I'm using. And my checkpoint as I go back here, where the shaft is parallel to the ground, one, I feel like I have a little bit of extension in this wrist, so that I'm certainly not flattening this out and twisting the club face down. There feels to me like there's a little bit of angle here in the back of my wrist. And the associated club face position with that would be a club face where the rod here is sticking out a little bit more level to the ground. I would say in a very neutral takeaway, that rod would still have a small amount of downward to it, but it's not pointing right down to the ground like so. The amount of twist in your wrist that you'll need individually to do here to reduce your hooking will depend on a number of factors. It will depend on how you grip the club. We talked about that earlier. It will talk about how much of a problem the flexion is in your current swing. You may be someone who closes the club a tremendous amount and you'll need to feel a lot of this extension. Equally, you might be someone who just suffers with a small hook and you want to take that out a little bit. So the amount of extension that you need to feel here is going to vary slightly from player to player, but your checkpoint would be to go above this stick in the backswing and just check when the shaft's parallel to the ground here that the rod is pointing more level to the ground. Or if you didn't have access to a rod like this, you would simply be looking at the club face here and just note that the leading edge was close to vertical. As I say, a very slightly turned down is acceptable, but you'd have it much more close to vertical as opposed to the old problem of horizontal. Make that rehearsal a couple of times, check and feel that the club face is straight up and down and that associated wrist condition that goes with that, and then go ahead, having practiced that and rehearsed that a couple of times, just go ahead and hit one. That felt okay, wasn't the best strike I've ever made there. A little bit heavy, still looks like I turned the club over a little too much. There was some more hook in there. So despite trying to put in the right sensation there, I was still prone to having the club face too closed. So we'll do that rehearsal again, pointing the club face a little more up to the sky this time, just exaggerating that extension in the wrist and trying to really maintain that feeling for longer down into the ball. I really felt like I held the club face open more there, and you can see from the ball flight much straighter and much higher, which is something, as I said before, that many of you will not be used to seeing. If you're hooking the ball, you're playing with a club face that's too closed. If you close the club face, you also reduce the loft, and if you reduce the loft, you reduce your ability to hit the ball high. Hitting the ball higher opens up an entire new world for you in terms of your scoring. You'll be able to land the ball on the green, but actually stop it on the green, rather than finding those shots that do find their way to the green, continuing to run on and roll off the green, causing you to shoot higher scores. This truly is a gateway and a pathway to better scoring. If you learn to control the hooking, you'll hit the ball straighter and you'll hit the ball higher as well. Experiment with that feeling of more extension in the lead wrist. Use the training station to help you swing straighter into the ball. And the combination of those two things will have you hitting the ball higher and straighter than ever before. I hope you enjoyed the video and it's useful for you. If you want to learn more about HackMotion and study some more training videos, then you can click on the link in the description of this video, which will take you to more HackMotion wrist training videos.